AJ, it is now time for Rex Brandstatter Senior Talk, brought to you by the Stolen American Legion and Senior Benefits. Hello, Rex.
Oh, good afternoon, Molly. Say, Molly, Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you.
You bet you believe it. And I'm not one who has to worry about a white Christmas, because I just soon take this. I wish the sun was out, make it a little more happy looking, but we'll take it, for sure. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, it's welcome to Senior Talk, our weekly radio program where we try to stir things up a little bit, stir up some ideas and some thoughts and maybe some processes that some gang planks that you could walk onto different ideas to help yourself, and that's what we try to do. Try to bring those all to the forefront here. So it's a great day here to be with you. It's a great day to be a senior, and maybe a senior gonna be. Those are people who are not quite a senior yet, and in my book that means 60 years old. In my book that is 60 years old, but you're gonna be one. So good luck to you, and happy for you. I'll do my best every week to bring some information that might be important to certain people. Maybe it's you, maybe it's your family, maybe it's one of your friends, some of your friends, maybe it's some of the guys at the coffee shop, or some of the ladies the ladies groups and things like that. Maybe people in your church or a different organization. Just try to bring some thoughts to the top and see what you think, and you take it from there. Do my best to bring things to the forefront. We'll talk a little history. We're going to talk a lot of history today, folks. And so what the best thing for you to do would be to sit back, grab yourself a sandwich and a nice cold root beer, and let's just see what we can cook up. My name is Rex Brandstatter. I'm 76 years old, and I'm a real estate broker, and I like and prefer, not so much, but prefer to work with seniors. And I work with lots and lots of seniors. I work with the senior themselves that you're talking about, maybe changing where you live, or it doesn't have to be today, or maybe you're going to make a change in 2026 or a couple years down the road when you retire, that type of thing. And gee whiz, you should know what your property is worth, and that's where I could come in. You can give me a call. And quite honestly, I work with a lot of attorneys. I work with administrators of an estate. If you've been appointed administrator of an estate, if you're an executive of an estate and you have real estate to sell, well, you can give me a call. I work with trust departments of banks call me, accountants call me, trying to work on that end of the scale in real estate. So I have a senior line, which is 319-330-5534. 330-5534. Got a nice call from a senior lady yesterday. I'll be working with her the first part of the week, just finishing up with 2 estates. So it's what I do, and it's none of those processes are fun. None of them are easy. So it does take someone maybe who's got some experience. So could be me, maybe. So please give me a call, 330-5534. That is for sure. It's important that you know that just because you're not moving today, not moving in 6 months, but you might want to know what your property is worth. You might say, well, I don't know. We're doing some restructuring of our will and things like that. And what is our property worth? You can give me a call on that. I can help you with that. We can determine a relatively range of pricing that you could ask, maybe a price it might sell for, things like that. You should know that. Well, the house across the street, Rex, sold for $200,000. And our house has a 2-car garage, and they only have a 1-car garage. Well, those are things that help, and we can look all those things up. No 2 houses are the same. You can drive down the street. No 2 houses are the same. That is for sure. So that's the scoop. You know, sometimes it just comes a time that you no longer can live in your house. Your house hasn't changed. You have. Maybe all of a sudden now you've lived there for 35 years, and the washer dryer is up or down in the basement or up on the 2nd floor, and you now need to have a bedroom on the main floor. Lots and lots of things change. Should you stay there? Should you remodel? It costs lots and lots of money to remodel, but it costs a lot of money to get a different house too. So those are things that we wade through and things that we talk about when you give me a call. And we just sit down at your kitchen table. We sit at my office. We sit at the coffee shop, and we just flat talk about it. That's the best deal to go. Well, there are people at the end of 2025, which is the next week, who are going to retire. And congratulations to each and every one of you. working many years at the company or two companies or 9 different companies, but the end of the trail is the end of this year, and my salute and my congratulations to you. Now, are you retiring from something or going to retire from something and then go to something? Well, that's entirely up to you, and you'll have to figure all that out. Now, if you're retiring, that means that hopefully that you have explored your financial abilities, capabilities, liabilities, pros and cons of that, so you can comfortably walk out the door and do whatever you wanted to do while at the time you were working, but you were working. So that's all on your end of the table there. I hope that each and every one of you have put together a nice program for yourself. And if you're listening today and you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, get busy working on a program, a retirement program. They call it retirement program, and you talk to someone in their 20s or 30s, and they say, well, our company takes money out for retirement, or 401k for retirement. And you might as well tell them you're from Mars, because retirement is 40 years away. So I think it should be call it I don't know, not a retirement. I haven't come up with the proper word yet, but a life fund, a life living fund, or something like that. Future living fund type of thing, arrangement. That's what needs to happen. So get on it, folks. You really get on. Well, there are some certain things that need to happen in order for spring to arrive. And it's called, number one rule is called Father Time. Of course, we can't do anything about that. But I have some mileposts, as you may have heard here. I have one, the big one. I think one of the very biggest ones is we just got the sun to turn around. Okay, on Monday, the sun turned around at 9:05 a.m., not that I know, and the sun is heading back. We're already up a minute, maybe 2. I think we're up 1 minute already. Not that anybody can tell yet, but the sun is coming back home. Folks, the sun is on the way home. Going to take a while to get here. We'll have to wade through the rest of December. And, of course, January and February really cannot be a cup of tea half the time. So we'll do what we can do. Maybe this winter with the dump of snow and cold has got it out of its system. Well, I wouldn't count on it. So the sun has turned around. Now the next step is, of course, we'll just get through the Christmas and the holidays. And then we'll reveal step 2 after the first of the year. Now, let's talk about the first of the year. Next week, a week from today, is New Year's Eve, and there will not be senior talk because the Iowa Hawkeyes will be on playing right now. They'll already have a big lead on Vanderbilt as we speak. That's the story, so don't tune in next week. You won't hear me if you do tune in, because I'll be watching the game with the rest of you. Well, in lieu of all kinds of senior facts and figures, it's the end of the year, and I figured, well, let's just talk a little history. And I thought I would do that today, and I'm just going to shoot from the hip. I'm going to talk some history, and I'll go down different roads and different pathways here. I cannot cover the history of Iowa City and Johnson County and Corwin and all the area in 45 minutes or anything like that, but I can just kind of bring an overview of some things. So let's go here. Let's just see. Go, and a lot of these are from my hip, and I don't have the exact dates on these things, but I read a lot. I'm going to say I know a lot, but I don't know as much as half the rest of you, but I do my best. Well, Territorial Governor Robert Lucas was appointed. He's from Ohio, and he was an attorney from Ohio. Now, what you had to be an attorney back then was not a heck of a lot. You had to read a lot of books and know a lot of people and know something about the current laws. And so basically those guys were well-read, probably been to college and well-read. And he was appointed in the 1830s to come out to Iowa, which he knew nothing about, come out here to the Iowa Territory, and he landed in where? I don't know where he landed, but he ended up in Iowa City. And he ended up with not Iowa, but he ended up over off Kirkwood Avenue, what is now Kirkwood Avenue, and called Plum Grove. And I think that's part of the Sunnyside Farms over there, what they call it. So Plum Grove is still there. His house is still there. It's owned by the state of Iowa, and is owned and operated by the Johnson County Historical Society. And if you have a church group or a ladies group or a bunch of guys, you want to do something different, well, you can call the Johnson County Historical Society. And I'll probably wait till spring, with a little nicer weather, and you can get a tour of that. That's the first home over there. So Robert Lucas and his wife, Friendly. His wife was Friendly Lucas. Now, is there a street in Iowa City with her name on it? Friendly Avenue. Yeah, that's named after Robert Lucas' wife, Friendly. So I'll bring a little of that to it here. And one of his main jobs was to find a location for a capital in Iowa. Now, the capital had been down in Berne Tiern and or Keokuk, and they knew they had to move it, so they were going to come up here. Well, a guy named John Gilbert thought he had a pretty good mousetrap going, and John Gilbert had a trading post, and he was friends with the local Indian tribes and local Indian leaders, and his trading post was just south on get this, Gilbert, what is now called Gilbert Street. His name was John Gilbert, a single man, and he was lived down there, and he built a log cabin down there, and then he built a double log cabin. All roughly speaking, where Terry Trueblood Recreation Center is, and the girls, I think it's a girls' softball diamond. Roughly, that is where the location, it sort of was down in there. And then, so when Governor Lucas was appointed to pick up, he appointed some guys, Chauncey Swan, John Ralston. Chauncey Swan later owned a hotel and a restaurant in downtown Iowa City with his wife, John Ralston from Ralston Creek, and there were others who helped do that, to find a site. And they looked all over. They wanted a site that had a view of the river, of the Iowa River. So they marched along and down on Highway 6 bypass, which, none of these things were there, folks, but there became a man who operated a ferry service down there on the corner down there, Sturgis Ferry, the Sturgis. That was where they installed a ferry system, but there were no dams along the river, so they found a spot, and they drove a stake in the ground, and it is right where the old Capitol is right now, because of the fact they could see to the east, they could see to the west, even though the big bluff is there, they see to the north, and so they drove a stake in the ground there. All right, that's going to be the site of the new Capitol. The other thing about that was it served as it had a nice landing area for steamships. And the steamships did come up the Iowa River from the Mississippi to that location. There were no dams along the way, and from there on around the bends and everything, the river seemed to be too shallow. So it came up, and plus this is where they're going to build the Capitol. They didn't need to go any further north than that. So that's when there was a ferry system right there. There was a ferry system at Benton Street and Sturgis Corner down there. So that's how people got across. And they charged, I read the charge, it was 25 cents. Sometimes it was a wagon, and a family was $1. So it wasn't cheap. I thought that was kind of steep. And a lot of them waited till winter if it froze over. And a lot of them swam the rivers, walked across the river. It was a tough go. Rivers created quite an impasse for them. So he appointed those guys, the President of the United States appointed those guys to find his Capitol building. Now, if you'd like to drive around Iowa City, a little bit of history, you know where Old Capitol is. You can go down there. The Old Capitol became the Old Capitol in 1846, I believe, and served until 1855 as the capital of Iowa. That was the capital of Iowa. Now, we call it Old Capitol, but it was the capital of Iowa. The Iowa Senate met there. The Iowa House met there. And all the administration for the state of Iowa was right there at the Old Capitol. Now, one thing about the Old Capitol, if you haven't been in there recently, if you've never been in there, they do offer tours, and you can go down there on the east, what they call the East Portico. And entry there. It's university offices, so I suppose there's a phone number. I'm a little weak on that. But get yourself a tour. They do have docents who work there and give you tours. I've been in there many times, and one of the things about it, they've got one of the world's largest reverse spiral staircases in that building. It's pretty interesting stuff. It really, really is. Get yourself a book about reading about the history of the Iowa Capitol, of the Old Capitol. So that's right here in Iowa City. It's a national historic place for sure. Well, they drove a stake in the ground. Now, if you're driving around Iowa City, you could go out on Court Street, I want you to go out to Court and Summit, the corner of Court and Summit, and on the west side of Summit Street, right there where it meets with Court Street, you will find a cement, I'm going to call it a pilaster, but it's about 4 feet tall. It's angular at the top. And that was 1 mile from the Old Capitol, and they put them in 4 corners. So that one is still there. You can drive around. Okay, another landmark type of things like that. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, but I got a train of thought. At the east end of the Iowa Avenue Bridge, which used to be called the Centennial Bridge, by the way, at the east end of the Iowa Avenue Bridge, on the south side of the river, south side of the bridge, you will see another big obelisk, I think they call it, another big cement outcropping there. It's about 8-10 feet tall. That's the last remaining vestige of old Iowa field, baseball field, and football field. It's still there. It's right at the very end of the east end of the Iowa Avenue Bridge. So if you know what you're looking for, you can find some old vestiges of history of Iowa City. So there you go. Now we've got these guys back in 1830s. They appointed that. Iowa City became a city in 1839, and things were going good, and the Capitol was just cooking along. And let's see here, 1842, the Iowa City Manufacturing Company located a site for a new grist mill. It's the Coralville Dam, not the reservoir, but the Coralville Dam on First Avenue. And the first operator was Chauncey Swan, and he decided it was just too much for him. Then they chose that site because it has a hard pan bottom there, and where it comes around the bend there, just to the north of the Coralville Dam there, our River Power Restaurant area. It slows the river down. They thought that was a perfect place, so they made a grist mill area, that operation that was turbined by the water, of course. And they brought out a guy from Ohio named Ezekiel Clark. And Ezekiel Clark came here, and he was the first real owner-operator. He bought into the thing out there, and they had debentures out there. You didn't have to put cash in. You could put up to $25,000 in with all kinds of different ways to do that. Pretty interesting financing where they did it. Well, Ezekiel Clark ran it for a few years, and then Ezekiel Clark was a bigger fish than this in our Iowa politics, local politics, and American politics. You should read about Ezekiel Clark. He is buried up at where is he buried? Up in the north end of town, up there, Oakland Cemetery, in the older part there, right by the main office that the city has. Quite a guy. Well, he ran it for many years, but he wanted to do more, and he did more. And so he brought in his brother-in-law from Ohio, another guy from Ohio. He brought in a guy named Samuel Kirkwood. And I want you to close your eyes and think Kirkwood Avenue, Kirkwood College, Kirkwood Elementary School in Coralville. And his house is still on Kirkwood Avenue. Well, he and Ezekiel Clark were brothers-in-law. And to this day, they're buried about 150 feet of each other in Oakland Cemetery, and they don't know it, of course. So that's what happened. That's how it got going. Actually, Samuel Kirkwood was elected, to the Iowa State Senate, and of course he walked and or rode his horse from Coralville over to there, because he worked in Coralville and he just rode it to the Capitol. Interesting story. And he wore a big long coat, and he was called the Dusty Miller from Coralville. Now Coralville wasn't called Coralville as yet. Coralville didn't get that name until 1873 from a Professor Louis Agassiz, who came here from, get this, the University of Iowa hired Louis Agassiz, who was the world's foremost authority on rock formations and sediments and things like that. He came out here from Harvard. They paid him $10,000. Well, my question would be, where did they get $10,000? I don't know. But that goes right in with 1855 coming up. In 1855, a couple things happened here. On midnight in 1855, which is like anniversary will be next week, the railroad got here, and they won a $50,000 prize to get here from the city of Iowa City. Well, my question is, where did the city of Iowa City get $50,000 to give to the railroad if they got here by New Year's Eve in 1855? I don't know. I never could figure that out, but I'm sure businesmen chipped in to do that. That's probably true. So all these things are going on. Well, now we've got the Capitol in 1855, and now the state of Iowa was growing, and things were moving west. Remember the old Manifest Destiny, people were moving to the west, and now it became Iowa was more clearly identified now on the map, pardon me, and it looked like they needed to move the capital. And so they moved the capital to Des Moines, and they sort of decided that we're either going to move the capital to Des Moines or the newly created University of Iowa to Des Moines. Because even though the University of Iowa was formed in 1846, 1848, February 25th, 1847, and classes started in 1855. But in 1846, Iowa became a state. Wow. That's a long time ago. So what they did was they decided we're going to move the capital and or the university. Well, thank God they moved the capital and got those politicians out of Iowa City and left us with the Hawkeyes. Left us with the university. So we won that battle, folks. In my opinion, we did the best there. And when they did that, they loaded all the furniture up in the old Capitol and they moved it. And all the train didn't make it to Des Moines by then. They loaded it up on stagecoaches and wagons and things like that. And as history tells us, they got to about the Newton area over there, in big rains and storms and mud, and they had to throw out lots and lots of furniture. The fine furniture that was in the old Capitol never made it. And so if you see an original piece from the old Capitol, it's either A, a fake, or B, rescued from the pile somewhere. That might have made it. Wow, pretty good, pretty neat stuff. Well, Iowa became a state in December in 1846, the University of Iowa, February 1847. And the aforementioned Sam Kirkwood was elected to the Iowa Senate in the mid-1950s. And then Sam Kirkwood, remember now Kirkwood Avenue, Kirkwood Community College, was elected to be the governor of Iowa. Yeah. And he was the governor of Iowa during the Civil War. And the true story will tell you that at one point he didn't have enough. Iowa, remember, sent more men per capita to the Civil War than any other state in the Union. At one point, they didn't have enough money to pay all of our soldiers. So Sam Kirkwood footed the bill from the profits from the grist mill in Coralville. That shows you the magnitude, and it was a big deal. Well, and that's about so much for the local history. 1800s, remember, I can't do everything. I would tell you this. I would tell you that in 1875, the grist mill was there, and then they had a paper mill and a flour mill right there in a row. In 1875, the paper mill blew up, and 3 guys got killed. And that sort of set Coralville back, because Coralville just became Coralville in 1873 after Louis Agassiz, the professor came out and saw all the coral fossils along the river, the limestone outcroppings, and later on in the newspaper they said a little town sprung up called Coralville. They're going to call it. So that's how we got our name. That's how they got our name out there. So, all right. You know, the first hotel in Iowa City was called the Leanback, L-E-A-N, Leanback, and it is right now where the St. Bert's Tavern restaurant is downtown Iowa City. That's where that was, because they wanted to build close to the old or close to the Capitol, because people were coming here. So, legislators, can you imagine the legislators coming here in 1850s on their horse and trying to make rules and laws? Well, they did that. So, by the way, speaking of that, back in those days when the building caught fire, they burned down. I mean, they had no way to do it. But I will tell you that the Alert Hose Company in Iowa City, the Alert Hose Company, was situated up on the north end of town later on, not at this point, not in 1860, but in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the Alert Hose Company was up there. And right across the street from Pearson's Drug, if you remember where Pearson's Drug is now, it's right across the street from Hamburger number 2, and maybe you know where number 2 is up there. And they had 2 white horses, Snowball and Highball, and that's where they answered the alarms from. So lots and lots going on. There's so much that happened in Iowa City. Up there in that extreme neck of the woods, there were 3 breweries up there. And my good friend Doug Alberhesky from John's Grocery is in on the new movie called The Beer Wars of Iowa City in the 1880s. That's going to be coming out. Had lots and lots of local people involved in the cast. So we're all going to want to go see that when it comes out. And they just filmed it. They shot it here the late summer and early fall. And so I haven't talked to Doug recently, but he's all excited about it. It's going to be a big, big movie, and we're going to want to support that. Well, the intersection outside of Leanback Hall there, the intersection right there is Dubuque and Iowa Avenue, had a great big center fountain later on in life, and also was the site of a big wood pile. So people would chop down wood, and they had saws in, but saw down and chop down lumber, wood, and they bring it in and put it in that pile there, and you could come to town and buy some lumber and take it back to your home, which is what the people up in the north end, like Goosetown up in there, that's where they all came and got their wood. Iowa Avenue and Clinton Street, Iowa Avenue and Clinton Street are the widest streets in Iowa City. 100 to 125 feet wide. Iowa Avenue and Clinton Streets are the widest streets. Now, an interesting story about Iowa Avenue, that there was the Capitol, and several blocks to the east, about 9 blocks to the east on Iowa Avenue, you come to Woodlawn, and it's you can go do this afternoon. You can drive out there to get to the end of the line on Iowa Avenue, and if you just go straight, you'll see a driveway, and there's 4 or 5 houses up in there. Well, the governor of Iowa was to live up in there, and then every morning they were to drive the governor in, of course, a horse and buggy and a surrey type thing, down to the old Capitol. So one thing you could do for fun, on a sunny day, it's more fun, but you could go up to Woodlawn and turn around, and you can drive around in there if you'd like. They don't really want a million people up in there, but go do it. Drive around. I've done it zillions of times. Drive around, and when you come back out, you just pretend you're the governor of Iowa and somebody's driving the car, and you can see the Capitol, and you'll drive right straight down into downtown Iowa City, right to the Capitol, where they would let him off to go to work as the governor of Iowa. Interesting stuff. Now, on the east portico of the old Capitol, about a month after Lincoln was assassinated, they had a wake for him, and you can see there's the actual photos of it at the time, taken from over in the Iowa Book Supply area of the east portico with big black drapes on it, signifying the loss of President Lincoln. All that history going on. The university is going now. We've got a city growing. We're doing pretty good. I would tell you that the St. James Hotel, which is where Iowa Book was, that burned down, I believe, in 1906. And it was a fine, fine place, fine dining, elegant rooms and dining rooms, entertainment areas. It burned down, and when it burns down, it burns down. In 1912, Hotel Jefferson was built. And Hotel Jefferson built, I think the Iowa State, what's called the Iowa State Bank building, I think that was built at the same time. The Englert Theater was right along in there. So they had lots and lots going on. Iowa City was a going place. And downtown was really, makes you wonder if if Joe's Place and the Airliner were built about the same time. They've been here forever. Just kidding, just there. But the Englert was there, and Englert was hot stuff. The Englert was a performance stage, kind of like they do now back then, and people came from all over the United States to perform there. Wow, isn't that interesting? Well, Iowa City got electricity in the late 1890s. Iowa City got electricity in the late 1890s, and they got city gas in the 1930s. And some interesting pictures of Iowa City in the 10s and 20s and 30s when the cameras were more available. You could see pictures in downtown, and you could see the coal-fired furnaces and the smokestacks. And Iowa City was like all cities. It was pretty grungy. It was pretty dirty downtown in the wintertime when they had coal going. So when they switched to natural gas, took them a while to lots of people heated their homes with coal and wood in Iowa City. And when the city gas came here, not everybody could hook up right away just because it got here in the 1930s, 1934, I think. So it took them a while. And the dam in Cornwall was fitted to be used for turbines that end up making electricity until about 1970. So all these pieces were really, really cooking. And remember now, we had the university, we had the city of Iowa City, we had the Mercy Hospital, we had the University Hospital. And in 1929, the university kicked it in gear. In 1929, you tell me what the university built in 1929. Well, they built the field house. Yeah, they built the field house and started on the west side of the river with the hospital. And Kinnick Stadium. Wow. Now, on the Kinnick Stadium, interesting, they built Kinnick Stadium. It's right where it is now. Both the east side and the west side stands are the same. Yeah, they really are. The north and south have been changed. Of course, the press box wasn't there at that time like that. And they had this is about 1929, yeah. And they had the $400,000 bonds that they borrowed from the state, and they defaulted on the bonds due to the Depression. And about the same time, Iowa got kicked out of the Western Conference, which we know is the Big Ten, for recruiting violations. Now, what were the good people of Iowa University doing for recruiting violations? It involved transportation and things like that. They didn't really have much they could give them, but they took care of them here. They weren't supposed to, I guess. Even had rules back then. So we got kicked out of the Big Ten. So Iowa in 1931 and 32 just barely evaded. They did default on the bonds, but they ended up paying them off or getting some of them let go, I think. Well, we ended up paying people like Grinnell College, South Dakota, play Yale, but Yale was a pretty big stuff. Yale was a big formula, but Yale would play us. The only Big Ten school that we know that would play us was Purdue. And Purdue hung with us, and so that's how we played back then. And they traveled by train and go down to the Iowa City train depot. That's where the train came in, because remember the train died in 1855. So we had pretty good railroad going in by then, and the train. I talked to several of the Niall Kinnick guys on the Ironman about traveling, and here's what they told me. They said, yeah, we'd go down there. We had to be at the train depot. We're going to go to Chicago, maybe to play Wisconsin. They go to Chicago and then take a different train, Northwestern and things like that. They all ended up going to Chicago usually for that. And I said, well, what did Niall Kinnick do? And I said, what did you guys do? They said, well, what we did, we get in a car and then we'd end up, get this, playing poker and smoking cigars. That's what the Iowa Ironman said they did. I said, well, how about Kinnick? And they said, Kinnick didn't hang around with us. They said Kinnick was in a different car and Kinnick studied to and from. Said he was not aloof. He was part of one of us guys. He would go to fight for the best of us, as we all know he did, and lost his life. But he said he was just another guy, but he didn't get in on the tomfoolery that went around in the cars. And the coaches would come around and tell us to knock it off. As soon as they'd leave, we'd go right back to our antics. And that came. I talked to Al Coupe and Erwin Pressey many times and they were on the Ironman. Coupe was the quarterback. So interesting stuff there for sure. Well, we had the depression was very hard on Iowa City, just like it was everywhere else. But 1939, fun stuff here, folks. The Iowa City School Board voted to build a new high school. Now, we had Iowa City High School, which is where Central Junior High was for many years, which is where Mercy Hospital was. It's now the University Hospital there. That's where Iowa City High School was. Well, Iowa City was growing, and this is in 1939, and they projected, they didn't project the war. They didn't know about that at the time, but they projected Iowa City was going to get bigger, and they needed more space. So what they did was the school board got together with the superintendent of schools, Ivor Opsted. Does that name ring a bell, Ivor Opsted? Sure does. Molly's agreeing with that. Ivor Opsted was the superintendent of schools, and the auditorium at City High is named Ivor Opsted Auditorium in his honor. There you go. Now, as you walk into that auditorium, you look up the big wording etched into the marble up there. It says Ivor Opsted. I didn't even know what it meant when I was going to school out there. When I was matriculating at City High, so to speak. I don't know how much matriculating I did, but I was there for 3 years. I never knew what I didn't know. I thought it was a foreign language. I didn't know it was a man. I didn't pay much attention to things. But Ivor Opsted was the superintendent of schools there for a long time. Well, they voted to build it, and in the end, everybody on the school board got voted out the next time because it took several votes to do it. Because people would say, well, why didn't you just build it in West Branch? Why didn't you build it out in Downey? Why didn't you build it in West Liberty? It's so far out. It's so far out of town. Why did you build it clear out there? Are you crazy? Are you nuts? So that's what happened out there, and it was out. The fairgrounds are out there, and that's where they used to have car races and the balloon ascensions. Thing like that was right out, basically right west of City High. Oh, Wilson Avenue and along in there, some of those streets. That's where all the action was, but it was on the edge of town. And here they come. So that's what City High was built in 1939. Well, during World War II, of course, that started. The United States got into it. Europe was trying to get us into it for sure, and FDR kept us out of it by saying no, and Italy. Great Britain and England wanted us in bad, and Churchill was trying to get us in, and we stayed out. We sent ships over there, sent supplies, and the U-boat sank them. We did our best to keep our men and our boots off the ground over there. And finally, we got dragged into it, and then here, December 7th, 1941, here came the Japanese and bombed Pearl Harbor. So now we're in it from both angles. Now, the Japanese met with the Nazis, and they were in kind of cahoots together. We were in a big world of hurt. So the Navy, United States Navy, opened up a pre-flight school at the University of Iowa because we had the big field house where they could assemble lots and lots of men. And the field house, when it was built in 1929, was the largest indoor field house in the world. And engineers came here from all over the world, India, true story, to see the field house. That's how big it was. Now, the field house. If you've been in the field house and the armory next to it, it was quite a place. And I spent lots and lots of time in there as a kid when I was going to university. And a kid growing up, ball games over there and track meets in high school, stuff like that. So that's what went on. So with the Navy pre-flight school, I just read that they trained over 20,000 pilots here. And they lived in the Quonset huts that became quite a deal, government housing. And the Quonset huts were right outside a lot of different places in Iowa City, down by Hansher, along in there. That was all Quonset huts along the river. Right west of the press box, you come out of the press box, the west stands the Koenig Stadium. It was just Iowa Field at the time, Iowa Stadium, not Iowa Field, Iowa Stadium. They were right there. They were over where the dental building is, and they were duplexes and then Quonset huts. That's just what it says. They were sort of cut. I will tell you that when they sold a lot of them, that was for World War II housing, and they were still around after many years. Some of them got bought by local developers and used as housing. One motel in Corville Strip for sure was built around them. They were Quonset hut inside. Stories are rampant stories about families there in town, still there in town, and they started in the Quonset huts. Lots and lots of stories, lots of interesting things like that. And they served their purpose. And by the way, they did serve their purpose, and we went on, of course, to be the home of the largest Navy pre-flight school in the country. 1859. And we can't forget 1956 because Iowa won the Big Ten in 1956, and we played Oregon State or California in the Rose Bowl in 1957, and then we won it again in 1958, and we played Oregon State in 1958, and we won both those times. That's the last time we won a Rose Bowl. For sure, we need to go back. So for sure, and of course, Evashescu's house just sold up on Summit Street. It just got resold. But in 1959, then, the 3 schools were built. Coralville built on to the Coralville Elementary, and that's where it became Coralville Junior High. So as you look at Coralville, what you know as Coralville Central was Coralville Elementary, now Coralville Central. To the right, to the east of that, is a kind of a flat building. It became Coralville Junior High for 2 years, maybe 3 years. In 1929, Coralville Elementary Southeast Junior High was built in 1959, yeah. And Regina opened in I believe I'm 100% right on that. I'll never admit if I was wrong, but I think I'm right on that. The Regina opened in 1959. So look at the education things we had going here. And City High was at that time only 20 years old in the new location out there. So boy, we were cooking, folks. And so those are the things that took place. That is, what can I tell you? I told you last week we were going to play a big game called Can You? And here are the 10 things on Can You? And I'm going to leave it with this because you've got some time in your hands. Number 1, can you tell me the amount of insurance you have in your house? Can you tell me the deductible of your agent? Do you get a rental car if you have a car problem with your car? Or do you get nights in a hotel if your house is unlivable? Do you know that? Well, you better check. Can you find the abstract to your house or your duplex or your 12plex? Do you know where it is? Can you tell your wife or husband or other where it is? Can you tell me where you keep the title of your car? Molly, where's the title of your car? Do you know where the title of your car is?
Similar car.
To the car you drive, do you know who has the title? The piece of paper called the title?
Probably my dad.
There you go. Probably. The problem with that is she said probably. So in other words, she doesn't know. She's hoping her dad has it somewhere in his file. That could very well be. I don't know that. So can you tell me what the assessed valuation of your property is? And is it correct? Have you looked at the assessment from either the Iowa City assessor if you live in Iowa City or the Johnson County assessor if you live anywhere else in Johnson County? Is it correct? If they have you down for certain square feet, they have a chart. You can go down at the administration building at 900 South Dubuque and ask to see your what they call your card, and they'll bring up on a computer now. They'll bring it up your property deed on that. Can you tell me if it's correct or not? Can you tell me where you keep the interior photos of your house in case you have a fire or a tornado? Your insurance agent recommends you do that. So I toured our house, and on my phone I have all the interior shots of ours because they're just going to come there, write you a check, and you're going to forget that you had pretty collectible guns, you had all kinds of antique furniture. You're going to forget that, and you're going to take a check. Not what they want. It's not what you need to do. You need to protect yourself and take pictures. Can you tell me where the keys are to the sliding door, the door from the garage into the house, and things like that? Do you know where they're at? Well, Rex, we've got a big junk drawer, got about 1 million keys. Well, in the coming days, why don't you go see if you can line them up, put them on a bulletin board, and label them? Aha! Can you tell me where your 401k is invested by your company? Big question. Can you tell me where your 401k is invested by your company? Well, Rex, they take it out of my check. Well, I know that. They take it out of your check. Well, what do they do with it? They invest it. But where? Are they in a pretty good mutual fund? Most of them are. But maybe your company has one that they like, but maybe you wouldn't like. I don't know if you can self-direct it or not. You need to find that out. Can you tell me the last time you updated your will or your advance directives? Well, I don't know. We had one 8 or 10 years ago or 12 or 20 years ago. I think it's okay. It's not okay. Things have changed. Iowa laws have changed. Can you tell me what your financial plan is for stocks and mutual funds and real estate? What's your financial plan? More people spend more time scheduling a 2-week vacation than they do on their finances, planning, and their retirement plan. All right. And finally, can you tell me the license plate number of your car? Can you? All right, I know Molly can because he's got a vanity plate. If it was stolen and the police ask you for your license number, what will you say? Oh, it's a brown Toyota, it's a blue Chevy. Go take a picture of your license plate with your phone. Just have it on your cell phone. All right. Well, those are some things. Those are just some shots across the bow. A little Iowa City history. The things I deal with all the time. I love it. I'm glad you listen. I hope you enjoyed it. And let's not forget to take a time to thank all of our veterans, those of you who have served and those who are serving. And the greatest secret in life is this: we never know how long we're going to be here. And I mean here, living with full faculties and things like that. But living without full faculties, maybe a stroke victim or an accident or dementia, can be a case of not being here. So knowing that fact, I want you to do all you can while you can, whatever that is. Do all you can while you can, because, as we know, too late may come too soon. And to all you families out there who are retiring, my congratulations. To all you families out there who are hurting and suffering due to the fact that someone in your family has been diagnosed with this or that, and outlook is not good, I wish you the best. Maybe you've been diagnosed, wish you the very best, and I'm hoping that you do better. So maybe God will take care of us all for sure. So thanks for listening today, and next week I will not be here. We'll be watching the Iowa Hawkeyes. I have negotiated a contract for 2026 with KCJJ. I'll be making a lot more than Molly is. No, trust me, Molly's making a lot more than I am. Trust me. We're going to have some fun again in 2026. I'm glad you listened to Senior Talk. This is Rex Brandstatter saying have a great Christmas and New Year's. We'll see you next time. So long.
Whether you're into high-scoring, fast-paced hoops, the brute strength and